All right, well, let's talk about one of our main stories today. We've got the dude, Elon Musk, everybody knows he's a piece of shit, but he really outdid himself recently on Twitter. It was actually a pretty big story, so some of y'all may be familiar with it, but Elon had an exchange with I guess, current or ex-employee. I guess that was part of the reason. This guy, Hallie. Now, a little background on this guy. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. He's Icelandic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this guy's like a saint. He sold his company to Twitter, and they had some kind of a contract with him where he would remain employed for whatever part of their
X amount of time.
Yeah, and that's very frequent when companies buy. They employ the owners just to help transition. They make it like very lucrative for them, and it's like a win-win kind of thing. So they bought his company. This guy was voted Man of the Year in Iceland. He's in a wheelchair because he has what's his condition?
Muscular dystrophy.
So he has muscular dystrophy, which is a progressive disease. So it gets worse and worse, as you'll see. Now, this man, he didn't know if he was still with Twitter or not. And actually, he has a good reason to ask because he has a contract that probably says if he gets terminated, they owe him a bunch of money.
Correct.
And so he says, Dear Elon Musk, he tags him. 9 days ago, the access to my work computer was cut, along with about 200 other Twitter employees. However, your head of HR is not able to confirm if I am an employee or not. You've not answered my emails. Maybe if enough people retweet, you'll answer me here. So I think Elon saw this as a slight, like he's trying to embarrass him. But I think this is totally legit because, first of all, if you don't get any explanation from HR or anything, and you know Elon Musk is such a he's always on Twitter, always.
This is the best way to reach him.
And you know he's always going through his mentions. So this actually was a fairly reasonable attempt, and it worked, by the way. He was right.
Right.
I don't think what he expected was that Elon would react the way he did. Perhaps maybe he would just DM him or something or say...
Or all of a sudden, after doing that, he would get a call from HR.
Right.
That would be a reasonable thing, is like Elon sees this and then rings up his HR department and is like, hey, handle this.
I mean, his original message is like, let's see. It's a tiny bit snarky, but like completely warranted. 9 days ago, the access to my computer was cut along with 200 other people, and nobody's told us anything. Like, he's entitled to the snark.
Yeah.
And as a reasonable business owner, you'll be like, okay, this is not a good situation. Let me take a look and fix this. He responds, what work have you been doing? It's like, it's your fucking company, you moron. Do a little tiny bit to investigate this. No. He says, I would need to break confidentiality to answer this question. If you have your lawyer share in writing, then I can do it. I'd be happy. He says, you're approved. Go ahead.
What a dick.
I think that's like exactly. He doesn't even want to discuss it openly. Like,
you're approved. Go ahead. It's just like he's nothing to him.
Yeah. Exactly. He wants to have this conversation publicly on Twitter. He wants this because he's going to teach this guy a lesson. He says, among other things, led the effort to save about $500,000 in one SaaS contract, supported closing down many others, led prioritizing of design projects across the company to make sure we were able to deliver with a small team. Yada, yada. He lists his job description, which for some reason Elon wants him to do. It's absolutely fucking insane.
Right. Is the implication here that if you say that you're doing enough here, you're not fired? Like, I'm gonna decide whether you're fired. Like, he's not gonna bother like looking into it to actually answer the question. It's like, I'll actually just decide if you're fired or not right now based off of your response.
That's a good question. What is he says, what have you been doing? Like, to what end are you asking this question? He just wants to know if was he let go or not.
Yeah.
If you amuse me, we shall decide here on Twitter.
Right.
Up or down.
So lame.
Okay, so he lists all this stuff. Elon says, level up from what design to what? Pixar didn't happen.
Pixar didn't happen. When was the last time you heard that phrase?
It's your company, dude. Like,
Not since AI.
how dysfunctional are you?
Picture it didn't happen. It's such.
So he's calling him a liar, essentially. We haven't hired design roles in 4 months, calling him a liar. What changes did you make to help with the youths? He's essentially calling him a liar. And then he posts this clip from Office Space, one of my favorite movies. And you know what's ironic? There's a deep irony here. He posted this clip. They said, what do you do here? They were doing interviews of the staff. And this one guy had like a super redundant job. He's like, I hand the paper to the assistant, and then the assistant brings it to the engineers.
Tom Sikowski.
Oh, there you go, Zach. And they go, what do you say exactly you do here? And of course, super patronizing, they fire him, implying that this guy does nothing and he is a fraud and that he needs to be let go. Insanely fucking. The idea of a owner talking this way publicly to employ, it's psychotic. I mean, it's psychotic.
It really is.
It's like such
so
a
weird
disregard for basic human decency. It really highlights what a psycho. He really is a psychotic person. This man has no fucking empathy, and it's all ego, 100% ego, no empathy. He responds, to be clear, you have every right to lay me off. That's totally fine and fair. But usually people are told when this happens, maybe with a letter or something, which didn't happen for 9 days despite multiple emails to you and others. Again, very reasonable. He's like, I don't care. I'm not asking to keep working here. Just tell me
he keeps it
what the fuck.
So professional this entire time. And
this is like the rudest fucking thing. I'm telling you, if you've seen this movie, you know. The irony, of course, is that these guys who are essentially, they're kind of like anti-villains. They're funny and they're like ruthless. But they do one particular thing that's so fucked up. There's this guy, Milton, that works in the basement. And they're like, oh, we've resolved the issue. And they're like, oh, well, we need to tell him he's fired. They're like, no. We resolved the issue. We're not going to tell him he's fired. We just want him to keep working. And he'll find out when he doesn't get payroll. I want the free work from him. This is what he's doing.
I actually forgot that that's how that goes down the movie. You're so right.
He's
it's like
them.
An extra layer of irony.
He's like, he burned himself so hard.
Wow,
that's
such a good point. I totally forgot that that's how it plays out.
I told Bill I did not get my check. I'm Bill Lumberg.
So it's like a comedically evil thing. And he's basically saying that he is them.
That's such a good observation.
That also is what led to Milton burning down the building.
Exactly.
The building, yeah.
Exactly. That's one of the best movies. I love it so much.
It's a good one.
If y'all haven't seen Office Space, definitely. It's so good. So he says, but as I shared, I finally got confirmation that I am not an employee anymore. So they did fire him and they didn't tell him and they ignored his request. Of course, I don't think they were privy to the fact that he had a termination agreement. Says, again, that's totally within your rights, no complaints, but can you make sure I get paid what I'm owed? Elon responds, the reality is that this guy, who is independently wealthy, what's interesting is he somehow figured out that he's independently wealthy, but simultaneously didn't figure out any status or details of his employment in his company.
And he's wealthy because he was seen valuable enough that Twitter paid him a lot, like independent. In this case, it's really not independently. He's wealthy because of Twitter.
As the richest man in the world, I'm wondering, what is your point?
Right.
Are you like wealth shaming him? The reality is, this guy who's bitching, who's super rich, like, why are you complaining? Like, what is he trying to say?
Right.
Did no actual work. He says he did no actual work. Claimed as his excuse that he had a disability, so he's lying about having muscular dystrophy.
Yeah, this is where it immediately is like any employment lawyer is looking at this and like,
this is a law.
Money signs. He's like explicitly like talking about his disability and why he's firing him.
Yeah, so we have an HR person now in Teddy Fresh, or she manages both of our companies, so I'm learning more and more about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot fire somebody because of their disability. You cannot do that.
Yeah, period.
And he's explicitly said publicly that he using his disability as an excuse,
right.
implying it's part of the reason why he did no work and needs to be fired. This is an employment, this is a wrongful termination slam dunk.
Yeah.
And when this guy has like a massive contract too, they're mega fucked. So he says, the reality is this guy who's independently wealthy, did no actual work, claimed as his excuse that he has a disability that prevents him from typing, yet was simultaneously tweeting up a storm. Can't say I have a lot of respect for that. Of course, this man, who is apparently a genius, cannot fathom a world where somebody with a disability can type.
Disability, mobility.
And also just calling out somebody for he's tweeting up a storm, like as if like he's not doing any work, he's tweeting all day. What do you do?
He didn't tweet that much. He really was like
all Elon does is tweet all day. So does that mean you do no work?
Disabled.
Well, we know he doesn't.
Right, but like it's just of all the people in the world to say that.
Yeah, but he's wrong. This guy kept it really succinct also.
I am disabled.
Yeah, that's what he said to Elon. So this is like actually fucking nuts. I mean, what's interesting is, yeah, you may have really put this guy out if he has trouble typing to make him write all this to your dumbass. But I do think that people with disabilities can type.
I mean,
they have
voice to text.
There's voice,
all kinds of things. Like,
dude, aren't you the technologist? Voice to text is so easy and immediate. Like, but Alex, this is someone else, I guess, who's interacted. It's obvious he did all middle management work from the exchange, but I personally would not put an ex-employee on blast and force them to prove their worth in front of 100 million people. Here's Elon Musk refusing to back down. He says he has a prominent active Twitter account and is wealthy. Again, what's with the wealth? You're the richest man in the world. What are we talking about here?
What are we singling out the wealth for?
The reason he confronted me in public is to get a big payout. He literally just said, am I employed? And you made this whole conversation public.
Right.
From what I've been told, he's done almost no work for the past 4 months, middle management or otherwise, despite his claims on Twitter that he did work. Turns out he told HR that he couldn't work because he couldn't type, but was, over the same period, typing up a storm on Twitter. Checkmate.
Got him.
Yet there are many people on Twitter defending him. This hurts my faith in humanity. This guy is the biggest loser. I mean, what a fucking ruthless... I mean, what do you say?
A loser.
So Elon Musk continues. Let's see. He says he's done no work for the past 4 months, despite his claims... Oh, yeah, he goes, people on Twitter are defending him. This hurts my faith in humanity. This guy, who has adoring fans simply because he's rich, who is absolutely degrading, mistreating, abusing an employee, ex-employee publicly, the people who support Elon Musk are probably employees of other people who, if their boss did this to them, would not be too happy, yet they support Elon Musk, and he's the one that lost his faith in humanity. I wish Elon was on that fucking Tesla they launched into space. That would have been a nice end to his story. He would have gone out the good guy and just, you know what I mean? Drive off into the sunset, literally. Drive into the sun. Wouldn't that be a good parallel world?
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Oh, Lord.
See you, old partners.
So he continues. He responds to that one that's really crazy. Hi again, Elon Musk. I hope you are well. I'm fine too. I'm thankful for your interest in my health. But since you mentioned it, I want to give you more info. I have muscular dystrophy. It has many effects on my body. Let me tell you what they are. And calmly just destroying him, making him feel tiny, which he is. My legs were the first to go. When I was 25 years old, I started using a wheelchair. It's been 20 years since that happened. In that time, the rest of my body has been failing me too. I need help to get in and out of bed and use the toilet. For a long time, I thought my arms would remain strong. A doctor told me they would, but they ended up losing strength, which I don't mind telling you was hard to accept. But you okay the cards you are dealt, and I've managed to create a wonderful life. My family is the best. I have 2 kids. See them every day. I recommend that.
That is, I love that so much. That is the most savage
cut
line of
him
this whole
so
thing.
deep.
And the next line too.
My wife is fantastic, strong, kind, smart, an amazing artist. I couldn't be happier with her. About 9 years ago, I started a company called Uno.co. I don't know what the fuck that is. What is that? Do we know anything about that company? And how much they bought it for?
We don't know how much they bought it for. I saw speculation that it just based off of the number of employees they acquired was like around 100, they said.
100 milli?
Well, that's the amount of employees that the company that Twitter bought
That's
had.
a big company.
And right, yeah. And I guess in the industry, it's fairly, in engineering, it's fairly standard, $1 million per head of like the company that you're acquiring. So people have thrown out the 100
Holy
million
shit.
figure. But then also, apparently, people saw that he had previously alluded to the deal and that he had taken significantly less than what other people had recommended that he take. So I've seen the range from like 25 to 100 million is what,
Nice payday.
yeah.
And he took it to stay on his project through Twitter.
Right. So instead of like being paid out as a company and like paying capital gains and everything, he chose intentionally to receive that payment as salary, which means he's being taxed in Iceland, where he's from, at a much higher rate. But he actively wanted to do that because he's very pro social services and everything, as we'll see when we learn a
So
little
he's a
bit more
saint,
about him.
and he fired him and stopped paying him.
Well, that's yeah, except usually with those kind of contracts, if they get terminated early, the entire amount becomes due upon termination. So
Elon, being the genius businessman that we all know him to be,
right.
fired him and what's the word? Disparaged him publicly.
Right.
He says, about 9 years ago, I started a company called Inuo.co. I worked a lot. It didn't do my body any favors, but it's what I felt I needed to do. The hard work paid off, and the company became very successful. We worked for more or less every big tech company. We grew fast and made money. I think that's what you're referring to when you say independently wealthy, that I independently made my money as opposed to, say, inherited an emerald mine. Bro.
Let's go, dude.
But after 7 years, I was tired. COVID was running for longer than the 2 weeks you said it would. Bro,
There's so much low-key shade in
he's
this. It's so
fucking
good.
slaying. This dude is like in a suit at his gravestone, like celebrating my enemy's death. My body was also continuing to get weaker. After looking at many options, I decided to sell my company to Twitter. Financially, it wasn't the best decision. My company was making a lot of money, and Twitter's offer was lower than any smart valuation would say. But like you, I made a bet on Twitter having a lot more potential than it has had. I joined at a time when the company was growing fast. You kind of did the opposite. There was a lot going on. The company had...
I mean, that's a fact. He shrunk the company intentionally, so that's, I don't know.
There was a lot going on. The company had a fair amount of issues, but then again, most bigger companies do. Or even small companies like Twitter today. Anyway, I digress. Are you still reading? Or is the bathroom break over? What was I saying? Ah, yes. And then you bought the company and told employees you weren't firing 70% of them, 75% of them, which you then did. I wasn't in favor of the first batch, or the second, or the third, or the fourth. I'm not sure which layoff round I was in. There were so many of them. Each one came after you promised the last one was the final one. During my time at the new Twitter 2.0, as you called it, I talked to my manager every week and asked what I should focus on. And then I proceeded to do those things, every one of them. I also contacted HR regularly and asked if my job description was correct or needed updating. I wanted to make sure I was doing what I was supposed to. They said they were looking into it, but I never got a reply. Now finally to my fingers, which I know you have great concern for. Thank you for that, by the way. I'll tell you what I told them. I'm not able to do manual work, which in this case means typing or using a mouse, for extended periods of time without my hands starting to cramp. I can, however, write for an hour or two at a time. This wasn't a problem in Twitter 1.0 since I was a senior director and my job was mostly to help teams move forward, give them strategic and tactical guidance. But as I told HR, I'm assuming that's the confidential health information you are sharing. Bro. Holy fuck. That's true. When you tell HR stuff, it's in confidence.
Yeah. And I have to, in particular, medical stuff. Like,
Yeah. Holy fuck, dude. As I told HR, I'm assuming that's the confidential health information you're sharing. I can't work as hands-on designer for the reasons outlined above. I'm typing this on my phone, by the way. It's easier because I only need to use one finger. I hope that helps. Let me know if you're going to pay me what you owe me. I think you can afford it. Holy fuck.
Yeah, brutal. Absolutely brutal.
And it's the burn that he more than deserved, I mean.
Sure. Yeah, it's outrageous.
So then here, this guy, I follow this guy. I've chatted with him a bit. He's the co-owner of Dogecoin. We talked to his former partner
Right.
on the show. Very nice guy and friendly with Elon. I always see them tweeting. And even he goes, I don't think it's a good idea to shit on former employees in public. He's the worst. Sorry, Elon said.
So, and I'll point out, this tweet Elon deleted.
He's the worst?
Yeah, because on top of all of the other lawsuit-provoking things that he said, him saying he's the worst like that, it's clear, like, it's personal. He fired him for personal reasons, which is another thing that they could get screwed for. So that tweet's gone.
Right. You can't fire people.
You can't fire somebody because you don't like them.
Yeah. It's also wrongful. Although there's nothing close. That doesn't even come anywhere close to firing someone because they have a disability.
Right. Yeah.
So let's see. Just to give you more details about this guy he's trashing. He was born to a working class family with a genetic congenital disease that had him in a wheelchair by the age of 24. His mother died when he was 11. When Twitter bought his company, most of the purchase price was paid as salary to maximize the tax he would pay for the sale in Iceland out of support for the country's social services. He then founded a project called Ramp Up Reykjavik with the goal of building 1,500 handicap accessible ramps throughout the city. He was then named Icelandic Person of the Year by the country's national broadcaster. That's the guy he should.
Literally like an icon.
He's like the jewel. He's like an Icelandic treasure.
It's like, oh God. It reminds me, it's genuinely so much worse too of the time, which really was, I think, the first time that people started to see the cracks in the cultivated persona that Elon had created, with the kids that were trapped in the cave in Thailand. Oh, yeah. And he got into it with the dude who was actually over there saving the children.
Yeah.
And implied he was a pedo and stuff, and it was like a whole thing. And that was before the whole world had turned on Elon.
See, I remember when that happened. I was like a huge Elon fan. Uh-huh. And when that story broke, I was like, he's got to know something that we don't.
Right. You gave him the benefit.
I was like, shit. I was like, he's got to know something. Maybe this guy really is a pedo.
Right.
Of course, he was just completely defaming him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we know that. In fact, he's done it a bunch of times now.
He actually got sued for that, but I believe won the defamation lawsuit by claiming that pedo was just a common slang insult in South Africa, and that he didn't actually mean. I think I could be.
I thought they settled out of court.
That is what this article says. It says that
that's such
Mr.
bullshit.
Musk told the court this week that the phrase pedo guy was common in South Africa where he grew up.
But that doesn't make sense because the insult is specifically about him living in
Thailand. It's nonsense, but apparently that's how he was able to deflect.
Well, I know it's not easy to win defamation lawsuits against public figures, although
you know a thing or two about
he's not a public figure, the guy he called a pedo. He's not.
It says, speaking to reporters outside the courtroom afterward, Musk said, "My faith in humanity is restored."
Oh, he loved
Oh,
that
no, he
phrase.
gained it,
Once
now he
again.
lost
and
it
now he lost
again.
it once again.
All on Twitter, by the way.
Oof.
Faith in humanity restored. That verdict surprises me. Unless they were able to prove that this guy's a public figure, that makes sense, but I don't know if he passes the sniff check on that. Second bet and a drill down, people. We're going all out.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm going to wrap this up before it goes off the rails.
Okay, so then there was an update. Elon Musk, of course, probably got several calls from lawyers, friends, accountants, that he is actually totally fucked this up. They're like, he probably got a call from a lawyer that's like, okay, just so you know, if we fire him, we owe him $50 million immediately.
Right.
Oh.
That's before the lawsuit.
Yeah. Elon's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh. Daniel tacks onto this thread. He says, as someone who has worked directly with him during a turnaround, this is super disappointing to see. Not only is his work ethic next level, his talent and humility are world class. Exactly the kind of person you want on your team when the odds are stacked. I feel certain there's a deep misunderstanding somewhere in here of did no actual work. That is insanely respectful and giving Elon the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Elon, of course, responds and says, based on your comment, I just did a voice call with Hallie to figure out what's the real versus what I was told. It's a long story. Better to talk to people than communicate via tweet. It's a little
love
late.
to hear the CEO of Twitter say, yeah, tweets are bad, actually.
It's a little late, bro. And honestly, how old are you and your station in life?
Yeah.
It's really kind of late in the game for you to realize that. Elon Musk age. How old is that guy? 51.
Yeah.
You know? Elon continues. I would like to apologize to Hallie. Of course, this isn't a straight tweet. This is in a thread, the bottom of a thread.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to apologize to Hallie for my misunderstanding of the situation. I thought we could fire you, but apparently that's a horrible idea financially. No, he says, it was based on things I was told that were untrue or in some cases true, but not meaningful. What does that mean, you dipshit fucking loser?
True,
It's such a bullshit apology.
Meaningful.
He's still considering remaining at Twitter. Yeah, I'm sure he's super excited to stay on Twitter, Elon. I mean,
I
really hate him.
Yeah, he sucks. But it was fun to see somebody like that get one over on him so publicly. And yeah, and like you said, I mean, people that genuinely are the types that are always in his replies sucking his dick about everything. Even they were like, dude, like.
Oh, yeah, the reply guys turned on him.
Yeah.
That's how you know it was bad. It's really disappointing to see. I mean, as a person with employees, I genuinely say this. You have to be a real fucking psychopath to talk to someone like that who you employ.